top of the page. And we're continuing to talk about the different methods of misa, of the 4 different punishments, the capital punishments meted out by a bezin. So now the Mishnah continues. What happens? Mishan is chayiv b'shtei misas bezin. So one of the 2 different averas. One avera deserves 1 type of mitzvah. Let's say one was machal Shabbos, and for that you get skila. And later on he committed adultery. For adultery you get a different punishment altogether. You get chenek. So which punishment do we give him? Says the Gemara, nidim b'chamor. We'll always give him the more stringent one. So if it's skila, we'll give them skila. That's the first part of the Mishnah. Part number 2. What happens over aved? He did 1 sin, shenes chayiv shtei misas, but that 1 act has 2 punishments or 2 averis done concurrently. So, for example, if someone has relations with his mother-in-law, happens to be a married woman, so he committed 2 averis. First of all, it's consorting with a married woman, and second of all, with his own mother-in-law. And so the question is, what happens then? Which punishment do we give him? For consorting with a mother-in-law, you get sreifa, and for a married woman, you get chenek. So the same principle applies. Nidim b'chamor will always give this more stringent punishment. However, Rabbi Yossi introduces a new idea. There's a concept called ein iser chol al iser. If there's already an iser established, if you already labeled this thing, already conferred on this thing, a particular iser, a specific iser, then afterwards you cannot put another layer, another iser on it. There's nowhere for the second layer to coincide. So therefore, comes along Rabbi Yossi and says the following. Rabbi Yossi says that whichever iser was first, that's what remains. What do you mean? So for example, she was a married woman before you even knew her daughter. So you already had an iser that this woman's an Eishes Ish. And later on you married her daughter. So the second iser, which is mother-in-law, according to Rabbi Yossi, has nowhere to coincide, has nowhere to go, because you already have 1 layer. The first layer is Eishes Ish. Ein Iser Chalal Iser. So therefore, Rabbi Yossi says, if let's say she was a married woman and the punishment for that is chenek, and afterwards she became your mother-in-law, the punishment is sreifa, we will not give the stricter punishment. We will give whatever punishment was first. So if she was first an Eishes Ish, then that's the punishment you'll get, which is chenek. Because 1 Iser cannot be layered on top of another Iser. So in the Mishnah, the Pei Aleph, the end of the Mishnah, at the top of the page, Rabbi Yossi says, Nidon bezika harishona sheba olav. Rabbi Yossi says, we'll judge her whatever the first layer is that happened. Says the Gemara, let's first analyze the first part of the Mishnah. It says that if you did 2 different avedas, we'll give you the severe punishment. Says the Gemara, Pshita, isn't that obvious? Isn't it obvious to give it a severe punishment? Why? Ella is guri asger is good because this person did a second avera, therefore they should be treated lighter. If anything, they should be worse. I mean, what's the mission you should teach you? Omar Rava says, Rava, you know what's going to teach you? Going, for example, sha'avar avera kala. Let's say the person did first an easier avera. Let's say he committed adultery with a married woman, and the punishment for that is chenek. But Nigma didn't have avera kala, and he was judged and sentenced. Somehow or another, the punishment for whatever reason didn't occur. He fled or something, and then he did another avera. He was machal Shabbos. The chazar va'avar avera chamura. He did a second avera. The question is, will the bezdin convene and hear the second case, or do we say, look, he's already a dead man. We already sentenced him to death. What's the point of having a second in Torah? So Salkadat, I would have thought, given the Nigma didn't laveda kala, once Bezin passed judgment, we're going to kill this person, even though it's a lighter punishment. Hi Gavrik Tilu is a dead man. So what's the point of reconvening? Kamash will know we will reconvene the Bezin to hear the second trial. Now Tosfos asked a very interesting question. We learned a rule before that in order for Eidim to qualify to be kosher Eidim, there has to be checks and balances. And what's the checks and balances for Eidim? And that is that if they can be found to be liars. In other words, if they give us edus, but they don't give us a date, they don't tell us where it took place, we throw out the edus because we can never prove that they're liars. We can't say, oh, Eidim Zayman, you weren't there at the time. You can't do that. We don't know. So Tosfos asks a very simple question. We learned just a couple of days ago that, for example, a treif, a person that's not going to make it, 12 months to left to live, kills somebody. We said if we kill a treifa, if you kill a treifa, we don't punish you because you killed a dead person. Even though you did an avera, but we, the courts, are not going to punish you. If a treifa committed murder, we won't punish a treifa either, because the two witnesses that come to court, there's no checks and balances. Because if they turn out to be liars, they were trying to kill an innocent man. This innocent man they were trying to kill happened to be a treifa. And if you kill a treifa, you're not going to be charged in a court of law. So therefore, we don't accept the aegis. So Tesa asks a very simple question. This second court case we're listening to, even if the Adim were proven to be liars, they weren't around or anything at the time, nothing's going to happen to them, but they were killing a dead man because the first court case already determined that this person has to be killed, and they were trying to kill a dead man. So there's no aegis. There's no aegis. How can you even have a second court case? So Taisa gives two answers. The first answer we learned just recently, and that is that if the Bezin themselves witnessed what happened, it's no longer a question of aegis. It's the idea of bi'arta hara mikibecha. You have to rid the evil from amongst you, and therefore they will kill this the Bezin can convene and kill this person, because the Bezin are the ones who saw this person, let's say, do the Chil Shabbos. The other answer Bezin is very interesting, and that is there is checks and balances here, a potential checks and balances. Because what happens if the first court case, the two witnesses that turned out to be liars, they found that two witnesses were not even there? We're not going to punish them because we're going to learn in Makkah that once the Bezdin hands down the verdict, we no longer punish the Eidim. But the person will walk away innocent. Sorry. In this, I take it back. So these Eidim, the Bezdin ruled that this person is guilty, but they haven't yet, they haven't killed the person yet. Then if the first case turns out to be that it was false, so then it turns out to be that he didn't commit a sin. So the second sin becomes the first sin, because the first sin is gone. The Eidim were found to be liars. So now that the second sin is real, those Eidim, if the second case the Eidim are found to be liars, they were trying to kill an innocent man. So, and then in that case, the Eidim will be killed. So in other words, the Eidim in the second case have a potential to become Eidim trying to kill an innocent man if the Eidim of the first case are found out to be liars. And if the Eidim of the first case are found to be liars, so then there's no first case anymore. It's gone. It disappears. The second case becomes the only case. So if these Eidim now are found liars, they'll be punished. So there's a potential, even though at this stage it's not yet really there yet, because there is the first case he was found to be liars, but there's a potential, and that's enough as far as checks and balances go. Then the Gemara continues. The brother Rabbi Yosef Bar Chama, whenever it says in Shas Rabbi Yosef, it's Rabbi Yosef Bar Chama. He had a brother. We don't really find his brother mentioned. Anyway, but Abba Bar Nosson, he asked the question from Rabbi the son of Nosson. How do you know Dam Rabbanan? How do you know this thing? That Mishnah is Chayiv, they miss the best need b'chamura. How do you know Taki give this more stringent punishment? Even though it's common sense, but if you're killing somebody, we'd like to find some kind of illusion somewhere. He said, I'll tell you how it looks. See, it says in the Pasuk, Yecheskel is telling Eden that there are two kinds. There are the good people and the people not so good. The bad people, you're going to give birth to Ben Poritz, a wild young son. Shefer Dam will turn to be a murderer. Elaharim Ochal, he'll eat on top of the mountains. And Vasisha Ejre Timei, he will go ahead and it'll defile a married woman. In other words, he'll have what we call intimacy. And he'll turn his eyes toward Avodah Zarah. So now we touch. Well, so three different Averas, and each one gets a different punishment. With Ben Paritz, he'd give birth to a wild guy. Shayfer Dam will kill people. What's the punishment? There's Saif. As H is Tima, he'll defile a married woman. Zu H is Ish. That's H is Ish. And what's the punishment there? Chenek. And then he'll turn his eyes to Avodah Zarah. That's Avodah Gechavim. And what's the punishment? There's killing. And then the next pasuk says, in the next pasuk it says that if you give ribus and all that, you will not live because you did all of these abominations. And mois yumas dama bayir. And what do we know? Whenever it says dama bayir, your blood, we learned before dama bayir, the man bam is skilla. So we see what Cheskel is trying to say is that three different avedas, each one has a different punishment, and you're going to get the strictest one of them all, skilla. That's the proof. Maski for Nachum Yitzchak, Ema Kula Beskila. Who told you that these three different Avedas are three different punishments? Maybe all three Avedas, you get skill, how's a passel? The Holy Ben Pod, you'll have a son who'll be wild, Shevidam, eventually become a murderer. Maybe perhaps he's talking about a Ben Sura murder, a child that one day will become a murderer, and what's a thief and a murderer. And what's the punishment Ben Sura murder? Skila. The Beskila. Aisha the Ayu Timid who'll defile this married woman. Who told her that she's married? Maybe Zunaira Marosa, she's merely engaged. And what's the punishment there? Skila. They're like and Avodah is skila. So maybe all three Avedas are skila. So I'm going to ask a very simple question. If so, why is Cheskel pointing out these three Avedas? What's he trying to tell them? According to us, he's telling a big chiddush. Three different punishments. Still, we'll give you the strictest one. But according to you, that all three Avedas are exactly the same punishment, then why talk about these three Avedas? They'll be doing many Avedas. In Cheskel, what's he trying to tell you? So he answered back, maybe Dilma Torah Kamahad, he's just revising parts of the Torah. Says the Gemara, what do you mean parts of the Torah? If you want to revise the Torah, he should revise the entire Torah, just like Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't learn. What initially he meant was Yecheskel, we have a number of laws, like an odal is not allowed to go even eat from Kabbalah, so we have a number of laws that we only learn from Yecheskel. And the Gemara asks, and until Yecheskel came along, how did we know? And we said that we knew Halach Moshe Sinai, but Yecheskel recorded it. So that's what he thought. Maybe Yecheskel is starting to, recording a few Avedas. And they said back to him, but these Avedas that is recorded are already in the Torah. And if he wants to revise some of the Avedas in the Torah, revise them all. And he continue. Now that we brought this pasuk, the next part of the pasuk says, "But there will be good people, righteous people, and these righteous people will do the following." They do not sit on the mountains. Means that these people are so righteous, they don't need to rely on the merit of their ancestors. They'll get rewards for their own merit. Or another thing, they don't worship. We're not talking about idols, too much righteous people, tzaddikim. They don't walk with an upright filled with hubris, because it's not an area that, even though we have the Gemara Kedushin, that a person shouldn't walk with a kaimas kufa, shouldn't walk like they're conceited, filled with hubris. But there it says 4 amas, and there's a machlekes rishonim if that applies to everybody or just to tzaddikim. So maybe that to everybody is walking 4 amas. A tzaddik not even standing still, and this is what he's saying over here. These righteous people shalaholach, or even walk less than 4 amas, because it doesn't say 4 amas shalaholach. Even 1 step, they didn't walk with their heads held high. The third thing is with ages of they didn't defile women, married women. What makes them a tzaddik? Every religious Jew doesn't. Every Yid who follows Torah mitzvahs doesn't. It means it didn't go and take away the panos of someone else. Now the truth of the matter is, no one's allowed to take away the panos from somebody else. But there are cases where it's not an avera, but still midas chassidus, it's a right thing to do, and that's what we're talking about here. Something beyond the letter of the law. At least didn't approach a wife who was a nidash and interesting, did not accept money from tzedakah, and because it's below the dignity, as Rashi says, even this person is a righteous person. Obviously, he was destitute. Why else would he get tzedakah? But it's nevertheless is degrading or demeaning for a righteous person to get tzedakah, and therefore he doesn't want to go to other people for help. We'll see what it says. This person is tzaddik, and he will live a long life. The Gemara says, learned this pasuk, he used to cry. He thought that in order to be considered a righteous person, you have to have all of these qualities and all these virtues. Only if you have all of these virtues, you live a long life. If you don't do all virtues, you're not. You start to cry. Who can meet these standards? If you think every time the pasuk lists a whole bunch of things, it means everything. Let me ask a question. It says in the pasuk regarding all the arayos, it says in the pasuk that don't become tamei ki b'chol eila, because in all of these the goyim became tamei. So according to you, it sounds like if you only have incest with one sister or one brother, not a bad thing. It's only if you do with all the arayos. Even though it says the word all these doesn't mean it means any one of them. The same thing with righteous people. Any one of these qualities makes the person a righteous person, and they will be blessed with long life. After going to you, if you said to him, only if you have all these qualities, only one of them. You have one of them, you're already a righteous person. Let's understand Rabbi Yasi. He said you did Aveda, whatever layer is first, Isser, whatever layer is first, that's the Isser. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yasi, Nidan Bezikar Rishonim Haba Allah, whatever is first. For example, Hamayisai, first it was your mother-in-law, she was a widow. It was your mother-in-law, for that you get Sreifa. And Nasa then she got remarried, so now she's a married woman, and you had a relationship with her. Nidan Bechamayisai, that obviously everyone agrees you will be punished. It's your mother-in-law, either because it's the first sin layer or because it's a stricter punishment. What about the other way around? She's a married woman before you got to her, married her daughter, and then Vanassis Chamoisa, then she became your mother-in-law. Now, as a married woman, you only get chenek. As a mother-in-law, you get streifa. Rabbanan said you give only the stricter punishment. You will get streifa. But Rabbi Yeshi says whatever is the first layer was a married woman, that's the punishment you will receive, as if you had relations with a married woman. Nidan be'eshes ish, you'll be punished as if you had relations with a married woman. Rabbi said to Rabbi, it actually should be Rabba, not Rabba, because Rabbi was a friend of Rabba. He said to him, but 1 second, even in following your logic, that Rabbi Yasi doesn't care about stricter or not stricter, all he cares about is the first layer and second layer. So Chamaisef is in mother-in-law, Benash's Eshish becomes a married woman, and we say that the first layer is what counts, not the second layer. But Rabbi Yasi is Maida. If it's an Isser Moisif, what's an Isser Moisif? An Isser Moisif is, let's say the first Isser was mother-in-law. Mother-in-law is only forbidden to the son-in-law. Anybody else, could marry her except the son-in-law. And then she got remarried. So now she's usher to the whole world. As far as the whole world is concerned, they only have one Isser, this new Isser. So the Isser took effect. And if it takes effect regarding the rest of the world, it moves over sideways and now takes effect also regarding the son-in-law. So now there are two Averis. One is the mother-in-law and one is a married woman. So now the Gemara asks, since a married woman is something that adds another layer that affects the whole world, it also affects the son-in-law. She's asking a very simple question. Why doesn't he get punished also in Eishadish? Now, of course, he cannot kill two deaths. How can he kill twice? Well, one for the mother-in-law and will burn, streifa, and then he'll get chenek. It means he thought we're talking about a shegi here, so he should bring two karban chatois. For this one aveira, he should bring a chatas because of the mother-in-law and a chatas as the married woman. Because the hamar avu might be is made to be iser moisif. If you're adding and it affects others, it affects also the son. Ada, he said to him, Ada bri, Ada my son. And because he said Ada my son, obviously it's not Rava, it's Rabba. He said, betray totally delay. We're not talking about here shagig, we're talking here about mazid. And mazid means you put someone to death. So what are you asking me? He should get a second death? I mean, what's the point of your question? Next Mishnah. Now we introduced the idea of a jail. And the jail that we learned about previously was a jail, basically, it was a holding cell until we can determine what exactly the punishment should be. Now we're going to talk about a jail, which is a punishment. It's not to reform anyone. It's there mainly to punish someone that cannot be punished by the bezin. So we put them in a place called a kippah. So Misha Loka Vishama, somebody committed a Aveda, was warned, received lashes, and then repeated, as we'll see in the Gemara, the very same Avera again. And then he's defiant. Bezdin Machnis and Oishla Kippur, place him in this box in this cell. And we will feed him with barley until his stomach will explode. Why? We'll see later the next Mishnah exactly what they did. Why would the stomach explode by eating barley? But we learned in Gemara Saita that a woman who was being accused of being a Saita, her korban mincha is made out of barley, and it says that because she behaved not the conventional way, and like a behemoth, so therefore she has to bring a mincha like the food of a behemoth. And the same thing over here, a person committed a sin, therefore we feed him barley because he behaved like a behemoth. Now, there's a big argument. Iran has a discussion. This jail that we're talking about over here, is this like a bezdin? The Torah says that this is what the bezdin can do. Because we learned before you can do other forms of death, or is this more like a bezdin has a right hayrah shah? This is not a normal punishment. This is just a peasant feels we have to do something for the moment. So the Gemara says, Mishum the lock of a shot the bezin goes to keep it. The person that deserves to die. Let's say he ate treif once, twice. He warned him, gave him malchus, and does it a third time. What? We're going to kill him because the purpose of this jail is basically eventually he'll die because we're going to starve him and then we're going to give him lots of food and he'll die. We are talking about over here Averis, where he'll get killed anyway. He'll get Karis. Karis is at the age of 50, then the person passes away. But the person is not 50 years old yet. The Gavra Bar Katolu, the person deserves to die. All right? No us. He's not yet ready to die. Well, the Kivan become a vatla nafshe because he defied us and he got his malchus, did it again. He repeated it a couple of times. He's mekavan l'tola. We said we do him a favor, we bring his death forward. So he's chayiv misa anyway. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done it. Let me explain to you the malkish or kodesh achas. I'll define it even further. It has to be an aveda where the punishment is kares, which is death from heaven, and plus it had to be the same aveda repeated again and again and again, which is an act of defiance, and therefore we toss him into this kippur. If he does a number of avedas, even though each one of them receives kares, but it's different. Isuru de katam levatikul. I will say that he's just tasting different isurim. He's not really being mevata kulahai. He's not really giving his life up. He's trying different things. That doesn't make him defiant. He's curious. Anyway, now it says here, if he committed a sin, got malchus, committed a sin, got malchus, then he committed a sin again, we throw him in it. This is like you're establishing a record. We call that a chazaka. And the Gemara Yivamas, we had a whole discussion. A woman who married a person and he died. Then she married a second person and he died. When does she become known as a katlonis, that somehow or another she's a bad mazel, dangerous, and the man shouldn't marry her? According to Rebbe, if this happened twice, he should not marry a third time. According to Rav Shimon Gamliel, his father, if he married 3 times, only then do we establish a chazaka. And the halach is like Rav Shimon Gamliel in most cases, but sometimes we follow Rebbe. So the Mishnah saying you did the same avera twice, repeated it twice, and you got malchus, sounds like twice is already established chazaka. The third time he'll be tossed into the skipper. So it seems that this Mishnah is ruling like Rebbe. Ask the Gemara. It seems that if he did a second time, even though he did a third time, we'll toss him in the keeper. He said 3 times, less than 3 times, not a chazaka. Ravina says, I can argue that's Rashbag. Now remember, this person, let's say, did 2 averas, he got lashes twice. And then he did a third avera. What is it? Where is the act of defiance? Is the act of defiance that he got lashes and he still does it? Or the actual deed itself? If it's the avera itself, well, the third time we did the avera, well, that's a chazaka of 3 times, and we throw him in the kippur. But if it's not so much the avera itself, it's that he got the lashes and he still went ahead to do it. It's the lashes that show the defiance. Well, he only got defiance twice, and therefore he shouldn't be thrown in the kippur. But we're going to say that our Mishnah is of the opinion it's not the lashes, it's the avera, and therefore our Mishnah does follow Rav Shimon Gamliel, and there were 3 times the chazaka because he did 3 times avera. Then immediately after the third avera, we throw him into the kippur. Kasavra, we hold avedas machzik. It's the aveda that establishes your defiance. Mitchell asks a question. It says, "The Brisa Obra Malki did aveda that has malchus pamish the first time, the second time malchus, and will give you lashes. Shlish the third time creation of the kippur, we throw him in the kippur, just like our Mishnah said. Fine." But then Abba Shaul says, after Shlish is malchus, does the third time we give him lashes again. But if he is creation of the kippur, only the 4th time we throw in the kippur. Now, what's going on here? What are they arguing here? So if you learn that the argument that it's the lashes, or everyone holds it. Maybe it's the lashes, but one of the Tanakhama says 2 times is a chazaka like Rebbe, and therefore the third avera you're going to toss to the keeper. And Abba Shaul holds like Rav Shimon Gamliel 3 times lashes you need. But you're telling me that everyone holds that it's not the lashes, it's the averas. If the Avedas establish you and the third Aveda we throw you to keep it, why would Abba Shaul say it's only when you do the 4th Aveda? So when I ask my lab, the Kuliyam, everyone who kills Machzikas, or Beplukta, the Rebbe Rashbag, the Machzik, Rebbe Rashbag. No. Everyone hold like bag. Everyone hold bag. You need three times. So what's going on here? This is exactly what the argument is. Avedas Mazlik is the Tanakama hold is the Avedas that establish your chazaka. So the third time you did it, Muchzik, we throw you into the kippah. Marshal, but Abashah holds Malkias Mazik. It's the lashes, that defiance. So we need three sets of lashes, and the fourth time you do an Aveda, we throw you in the kippah. Says Gemara, you're telling me it's all about lashes. Let me explain to me the following brisa. How did we learn? He's through boy. They warned him and he acknowledged that he heard the warning, but he doesn't respond. A hasra is where the person who hears the warning says, "I know and I don't care." But here he didn't say those words. He just shrugged with his shoulders. He knows and whatever, but he didn't say anything. Or he said by he nodded with his head. So Pam Rishon massive boy. Now the din over here is you don't get lashes. Because in order to get lashes, you have to answer, you have to respond, I know and I don't care. So you won't get lashes. But we know you're a Russian. And Avera you did on purpose. There's no mistaking you because you nodded, you acknowledged. But we're not going to give you lashes. So therefore the Mishnah says, even though we don't give you lashes, Shlisha, but the third time, throwing the keeper. There were no lashes here. So we're talking about the Averis itself. And the third Aveda, we throw in the kippah. That's fine. Makes sense. Fits in our Mishnah. Like Rav Shimon Gamliel, three times. But Abba Shol comes along and says, Abba Shlish is master, he warned him, but if he is crazy, give it a fourth time and throw in the kippah. You're telling me that Abba Shol holds you need lashes, and that's why you need three Avedas, and the fourth time you throw it in. But here there was no lashes. There were no lashes there because there wasn't a proper warning. Well, if there are no lashes here, why did Abba Shol say you need a fourth Aveda? Well, some Malkus like there was no lashes. The Mike and Mifki, what are they arguing? If everyone holds Rav Shimon Gamliel, actually, they're arguing when you throw into a kippah, do you need to give a warning? No, it's when you want to give lashes, you have to warn you know you're going to get lashes if you do the savera. And the guy has to say, I know, I don't care. When we throw a person to that cell, do we have to warn him? Say, look, if you're going to do this savera one more time, we're going to throw you into that cell. Do you have to warn him or not? And that's the argument. The Chachamim say, gave him two warnings, whatever it is, he should have gotten lashes. It's the Avera. The third Avera, he goes, we throw him into the cell. You don't have to warn him that you can throw him in the cell. And Abba Shaul says, no, he needs a warning for the cell. So the third time you warned him about lashes. And you cannot give a warning about the cell the same time you give a warning about lashes, because we cannot give two punishments. We cannot administer two punishments for one Avera. So the third time you warned about lashes, okay, won't give you lashes. But now, but you did not give him a warning for the cell. That's why we need one more Aveda with a warning that will throw you into the kippah. Now, what exactly is a kippah? I'm going to read the Molikamas. You're in isolation. You're in a box that was sort of custom made. Your height. The Heichelim means that where do you find any hint at all, an illusion that basically Bez is killing him? Where do you find any basis at all for this? Amr Shlach says because then the pasuk Temaises Rasha Ra. If you have a Rasha in your midst, then you should destroy the evil inside this Rasha. So therefore, we see Temaises Rasha Ra. Now that we mentioned that pasuk, we learn something else. That Shlach said, totally unrelated. My it says, nobody knows when they're going to pass away. Kidogin, Shlomo Melech said, just like fish and a chazim and mitzudar, or they get caught in a bad net. My mitzudar are in a bad net. The little hook. The little hook catches any fish, no matter how big and how small, no matter how healthy you are, unhealthy you are. It's you never know. It's Russian roulette. You never know when somebody's going to pass away, and therefore you should always do tshuva. Next Mishnah. Somebody killed somebody without any witnesses, so he won't get killed for it. You throw him in his jail again, a punishment. Give him very little bread to eat. It's a very little water. Says the Gemara, well, if there are no witnesses, how in the world do you know the guy's a murderer? How do we know? What are the three answers? Sometimes can mean, we had it before, one aide saw Reuven borrow $100 from Shimon on Sunday. Another aide saw Reuven borrow from Shimon $100 on Monday. So even though they did not see the same event, each one was on their own, but because they're testifying by the same amount, the same idea, so we'll combine the two together. Here we're talking about where we're learning more Makkah that the two witnesses, even though in money matters doesn't matter, when it comes to life and death, they have to see each other. We're talking about there were two witnesses, everything was done correctly, but the two witnesses did not see each other. Could be a third party gave us straw, we'll learn more Makkah. Because they didn't see each other, it's a technicality. We cannot kill the person, but we know that the person is guilty, so we throw him into his jail. Shmuel said, Shmuel said there was no warning. And that's why it's a technicality. We know that they forgot to warn him, but we know from his actions it was premeditated, it was deliberate, so we throw him in. And remember, there's a number of series of questions, chakiras, we asked at a specific time and also the place. And that's to prove them liars if they're lying. Then bedik, and if they contradict each other, we throw out the whole testimony. But bedikas are when we ask, what color clothes was they wearing, trivial things. And there, if they contradict each other, we don't throw out the thing. But according to Ben Zakkai, if they contradict each other, even on these minor details, we will not proceed to kill the person. But we know that it happened. It's just a technicality. So Gemara says, you're going to they contradict each other in these technical questions, but in these trivial things, but not in the main questions. And now we learn Ma'isa, but Ben Zakkai once was under a tree, and he asked them, how thick was the stem? And he didn't accept the edus, but we know the guys are guilty, so we'll throw him in a key. Why are they? A little bit of bread and water. Why are they? He told me a little bread and water. And the previous Mishnah, we said you give him to eat barley until the stomach swells. So Omar Rav Shesha says, they're both correct. First, a little bit of bread and water until the stomach shrinks. And then give him barley the stomach swells and bursts. Then the Mishnah says we have another concept, a concept where Bezin doesn't really kill, but we go the next step. It's called Kanoyin Poigenboy, that the zealots, they go ahead and they will take action. Big discussion whether these zealots are actually the K'tas in the beginning of Chosh Mishnah, where these zealots are acting on behalf of the Bezin, they're the judge, jury, and executioner, as if the Bezin is standing there, or this is a din that devolves on every single Jew, Kanoyin Poigenboy. And Nakanai Paigama is not something you go to a Rav and say, look, this is what I saw. Should I go ahead and do something? It's only if it's an impulse. It has to be impulsive on the spot while the Aveira is happening. So the Mishnah says, a few examples. A goiniv es a kassim. Somebody stole, as we'll see, a utensil from the base of Mikdash. Or hamekalil bekoisim. He cursed by saying that this sorcerer should curse, like we had before, Yaisi Yaka Yaisi. He's as if he's cursing Hashem Rahman Islan. He's saying that this sorcerer should curse the creator of the sorcerer, or the one who gives him all his powers. That's like being a blasphemer. If somebody has intimacy with a non-Jewish woman, in all these cases, the Kanoim go out there and they will, give him a blow and kill him. An act of zealotry. Koyin sheshimid betumah, a koyin served in the base of Midrash while he was tamei. Again, we will not, a bezin will not punish him. You don't make the bezin. The young koyin is an argument whether under 20s or under 13. Why under 20s? Because under 20s cannot serve in the base of Midrash, and therefore, if they become tamei by killing this man, we don't really care. If they're over 20 and they have to serve in the base of Midrash, if they kill the person, they become tamei. It bothers us. But see, or to take him outside of the courtyard. There's an argument whether the courtyard we're talking about Ezras Yisrael, which is right inside the base of Midrash, or even Ezras Noshim, the outer courtyard. They burst his skull open with very, very crude with sticks. Zor Sheshimid Midrash of Yisrael served the base of Midrash, or Akiva says he gave him strangulation. A Yisrael has no right to work in the base of Midrash. And a Chacham say b'dei we don't touch him. Bezin doesn't deal with it at all. It's up to the Eibishter. Says you want to my castle. What's his castle? You said over here that somebody steals a castle. He stole one of the utensils of the base of Midrash, just as an example, because it doesn't make a difference what it is. If you see them doing it at the time, you kill them. So this is the part they used to put in between the lechem hapanim, the hot bread. We had to have some space, a gap, so that the air can go through it, so it should be fresh the whole 7 days. So they put like a tube in between one layer and the next. That's called kasois hanesech. And if you steal that, you get killed. Now it's questionable whether only when you saw the act of stealing, or as long as you see it's still in his possession, you can still kill him. Where do you find any allusion to this? You're killing somebody. Where does it says in the pasuk Lo Yaveh Lirais Kebalas HaKodesh? Talks about that the tribe of Levi should not seek a husband. They're covering over all the utensils of the Beis Hamikdash. But we're dashing the word Kabbalah means also to swallow up or to steal. Lo Yaveh Lirais Kebalas HaKodesh. They shouldn't come and see the person steal the Kodesh because they do, they have to kill him. And the Kalil b'Kaisim, what's that all about? Ton of Yosef. Yake Yosef is Kaisim. You said that the Kaisim, the sorcerer, should strike Kaisim, the one who gave him all the powers. This is like a blasphemer. Rabbanon, Yakeyu Kaisim loy ulukoinu l'maknei. You say, let the sorcerer strike him, his maker, and the one who gave him all the powers. A boy of Rami, somebody has relations with a non-Jewish woman. What happened? The Kanaim did not do. They did not attack him. Is there anything that happens to a boy of Ramis? Mao, Inche Rav the Gemara. Rav totally forgot what the halach is. And interesting. Akriyur of Kahana, his student of Kahana. We had the end of Umar Baba Kamba. Rav Kahana was a favorite student of his, but then he had to flee to Eretz. So Rav Kahana had a vision in his cholim. And the following pasuk, the pasuk was Bogda Yehuda. Yehuda committed treason, but To'eva Nasa B'Yisrael over the Shalayim, and its abomination took place. Kichilul Yehuda Kodesh Hashem, because he desecrated the beauty, the kedusha of Hashem. Asher how did he do that? By loving Ubal Bas El Nechor, and he had relations with the daughter of an idol. Also, he went and told Rav. He said, a strange thing. I dreamt this pasuk. Interesting, Rav didn't dream the pasuk, but his student did. Amalei, this is what I dreamt last night, this pasuk. So Rav said to him, Atkir Lav the Gemara, you just remind me the halacha. Bogdi Yehuda committed treason to Yechavim. They worshipped idols. It says, it says that you guys committed treason by Hashem. Says the Eibush, because you went ahead, you served idols. But to Eva Nasa B'Yisrael, what does it mean abomination took place in Israel? Zem mishkav zachar. Yeah, homosexuality. It says that males shouldn't have relations. To Avi, it's an abomination. Same word. Then it says Kichil Yehuda Kodesh Hashem, that you desecrate Yehuda Kodesh Hashem, the holiness Zuzain. It's like it's a euphemism that for a Zainab we say Kodesh. So someone that consistently a harlot. It says Lo Yeh Kodesh, that you shouldn't let your daughter be a Kodesh. Big machlek is about not having relations with a non-Jewish woman. Do we learn that from Leitzis Chatenbom, that you shouldn't get married to them? Some say Leitzis Chatenbom means only if you get married, it's also, but if you don't do it in the way of marriage, it's not awesome HaTorah. Some say it's only limited to the 7 nations, not to others. Definitely awesome with the Rabbanan. The question was awesome HaTorah. And others learn from Lo Yeh Kaddish. That means you shouldn't do it. That the only time it's forbidden is if you do it consistently. But if it's a one-off, it's not a very matter. Ubal bas el nechas habal akusis. This is if you have a relation with the kusis. Some Rishonim hold it's only if it's the daughter of an oived avodah zora, not if it's the daughter of an ordinary guy. Then it's only awesome with Rabbanan. Uksi basrei. And then afterwards it says, Hashem will cut down a person who behaves this way. In other words, they deserve to be killed. Aid, when the people who will come try to start conversations, or respond to conversations, what does that mean? We'll see in a minute. Or from bringing a mincha to Hashem. What's the punishment? If this person when he behaves this way, his children will not be able to be the ones who arouse conversation about Chachamim, nor will they answer any questions that are asked. And even Kohen, this person, the Kohen, and he behaves this way, he will not have a son who will bring a mincha to Hashem. There's a few more lines. Anybody has relations with a non-Jewish woman, if he married an avodah zarah. See what it says, ubal bas el necher, that he had relations with a daughter of an avodah zarah. He bas yeshlo, he never have a daughter. He had relations with a kusis. Stop over here.